This is the Annunciation by Russian artist Olga Suvorova. In Olga Suvorova's interpretation of the Annunciation, she creates an obvious vertical line that divides the painting in half. That vertical line comes from the top of this figure's head, through the top of that figure's head, down through his arm, and towards the bottom of the painting. By lighting up the central figure with the child, Suvorova is not only creating a focal point, but emphasizing the subject of the narrative itself. In creating this line, she is guiding our eyes down to focus on the child. The child is being emphasized by his lighter colored robes in comparison to the saturated color of the other figure's robes. Olga Suvorova uses a great deal of symmetry, albeit asymmetry, which makes for a visually balanced and dynamic composition. With figures placed on either side of the focal point, balance is achieved, however the visual weight remains towards the right side. Suvorova achieves visual equilibrium by counterbalancing a seemingly larger figure on the left with the three figures on the right. While I suspect that the figure on the left is the same size as the figures on the right, being able to see the left figure more completely with her wings, instrument, and robes, she appears to be larger. Suvorova's dynamic composition stems from her use of diagonals. If we imagine the Baroque and sinister diagonals in the painting, we would discover that the child's head and the head of the middle figure on the right would align with the Baroque. This figure's head and the child's head seem to be directly on top of that Baroque diagonal. Consequently, the child's head and the head of the left figure would align with the sinister. So this angel's head and the child's head seem to be also right on the sinister diagonal. I also think the center female figure's head, this head, would align with the reciprocals of both diagonals, creating unity. The slight diagonal lines of the center female figure's robes also move our eye out towards the painting. The artist uses the vertical framework to her advantage. Looking closely, we see that not only are the center figures creating that vertical line, as mentioned earlier, but the other figures are too. The two most frontal figures on the right create vertical lines, and the figure on the left is also creating a vertical line. The white bird, along with these tall flowers, and the peacock's head and neck also create that vertical line. We can consider the lines of sight created by the direction each figure is looking as a sense of movement as well. Three figures appear to be looking straight ahead. This one, this one, this one. Two figures appear to be looking downward. And one figure appears to be looking at something outside the picture plane. With the combination of diagonal, vertical, and horizontal pictorial thrusts, Suvorova is adding complexity, along with added rhythm and repetition. We can also comment on the illusion of motion by looking at the implied motion of the left figure. With the sweeping, curving lines of her wings and her robes, we get a sense that the angel is moving. The playing of the violin reinforces this idea of motion. We can also see an enclosure being formed with the aforementioned figures' heads, which offers elegant and dynamic continuity. Enclosure with this, 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 and this. Also, we can imagine a larger enclosure encapsulating all figures. This larger enclosure can be seen following the left angel's wings down to the peacock's head and neck, over to the child's robes, following the line that separates the light value from the dark value, to this angel's arm, following her arm up, following her wings, and the other's wings over towards the top of the painting, finally the tree, and back to where we started. This is providing our eyes with constant motion. Another way Suvorova achieves unity is with the use of proximity with the three figures on the right side of the painting. Since these figures are in close proximity to each other, they would be perceived as a group which offers accomplished harmony. Since these figures are repeating and set on a diagonal, rhythm is obtained. Rhythm also occurs with the repetition on the center figures, which are placed on a vertical. Furthermore, with contrasting patterns in the figures' robes, Suvorova is creating complexity. Each of the robes has a different pattern on them, creating that variety. With the inclusion of the numerous flowers, specifically the roses on either side of the focal point, Suvorova is strengthening her composition. The many repetitions of birds contribute to her strong composition as well. While Suvorova's work is aesthetically pleasing, I feel there is some tension being created by the overwhelming flatness of the painting. While her figures do appear to be three-dimensional, their placement of one behind the other feels forced, especially with the two central figures. I get the sense of dissonance between these center figures and the other angels because of the way the artists position their bodies. The center ones look stiff and more controlled, as opposed to the angels, which appear more relaxed and graceful.